I have a feeling I'm going to have a big rant about this one. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kevin, I'm a geek. You are watching Kevin the Geek, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And this is the episode most commonly talked about with regards to the power of love.
Love me? Yes, Craig, it's you. It's always been you.
I've spoken about in the past what it was that made me start a YouTube, and it was always to be able to talk about these things that I'd never really got a chance to really talk about with other people, because most people weren't really interested in anything I had to say. And of course, Torchwood, Children of Earth, was one of the biggest things I really want to talk about for a long time. This is surprisingly another episode that I really need to talk about because of just how annoyed I get. Not so much with the episode itself, but with people's perception of, well, one aspect very much in particular with this one. Now, of course, do stick around towards the end, because as I do with all of my Doctor Who reviews, I give 10 categories a score out of 10 to give an overall score out of 100, which helps me when I do rankings. But, of course, we have to talk about the new companion for this. And, of course, it is the return of James Corden as Craig Owens.
I'm back.
Now, a lot of people really didn't like James Corden being in Doctor Who. They didn't like him in The Lodger. They didn't like him in Closing Time. I liked it. I thought he was a nice addition to the supporting cast. I did think he did well in a audience surrogate role. I think he did really good in doing a comedic turn in the character. I think he played really, really well with Matt Smith. Would he have done very well with some of the other Doctors? Maybe, maybe not. I think that this was the pairing that would have worked the best out of all of the Doctors that we've either had or will have, in my personal opinion. I think there was just something about their dynamic that just works for them.
Has anyone ever told you that you're a bit weird? They never really stop.
And I like that this episode sort of continued on pretty much from where they left off last time around. The Doctor came in, he found a problem, he fixed the problem, but had a lot of weird, funny, silly moments where he's doing stuff that he wouldn't normally do. Like in this one, he's working in a shop, compared to like last time where you just see him sort of living on a day-to-day basis and playing football and stuff.
Oh, I'm the doctor. I work in a shop now. I'm here to help. Look, they gave me a badge with my name on in case I forget who I am. Very thoughtful, as that does happen.
So I like the fact that we can see the Doctor in an environment that isn't usual and isn't typical. As an overall episode, it was very average. You know, I'm not going to lie, there was a lot of the stuff that I saw great. You know, your set, costumes, dialogue, music, special effects. There was nothing really stand out about it. I think the biggest plus that this really had for it is that relationship between the Doctor and with Craig. And people aren't going to like me saying it, but I like the story. Because this was a very story-driven episode. It was about the Doctor facing his final days. It was him going on his farewell tour. And it is about Craig, who, since we last saw him in The Lodger, he is now a dad.
Wherever you are, get off this path. You've broken him.
He now has a baby. And again, there is some silliness in this episode with the whole baby talking aspect of the Doctor, which was brought up previously in A Good Man Goes to War, but they really expound on it much more heavily in this episode.
No, he's your dad. You can't just call him not mum.
Not mum.
That's you. Also not mum, that's me. And everybody else is... peasants.
It is very silly. It is very cheesy. And that seems to be a general theme, I think, of this series particularly. It likes to take really, really dark subject matters, but because they go so dark, they almost feel they have to do the complete opposite at times to make it really light-hearted. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This one, I think it gets an okay balance. It doesn't quite nail it all the time. It doesn't go so badly that it's tedious. It finds an okay middle ground. The problem, though, that you have with this story is with the villains. And not in the way that probably most people would suspect. Because, like I said, this episode is very story-driven. It is about Craig becoming a dad, learning to become a dad, learning to accept the role that he has with his son.
Being a dad, you read all the books and they tell you you'll know what to do if you follow your instincts. I have no instinct.
And it makes perfect sense that for a story all about emotions and trying to cope with emotions, that you bring in the Cybermen. The only problem with that is you use them for a very functional and understandable, at least in my eyes, plot device. But otherwise, all you get with the Cybermen is them standing around a little bit, being a bit broken, and they're trying to fix it, and they get defeated very quickly. I won't say they got defeated easily, and this is a big point that I am going to come back to momentarily. They did introduce, at least to new viewers, and I will include myself in that, the concept of the cyber mats. And these were a classical accessory, if you like, to the Cybermen in classical Doctor Who. I can't say that I've really seen any episodes of Classic Who with the Cybermen at all. So I obviously haven't seen any episodes which feature the Cybermats. So I don't know as to how different they are, at least in their looks or their functionality, in comparison to what they may have been used in classical Who. So I can only talk about them in the modern context. And I thought it was fine. It was fine. It was creepy with the sort of fanged teeth aspect of it. Otherwise, it was a little metal rat, as Linda Barron's character called it. Linda Barron was really nice to see in this one. I mean, for me, I grew up watching her with a TV show. Oh, I think it was like called Come Outside or Come Fly With Me, or it was something like that, where she was. It was a kids' TV program, and she got into her aeroplane with her dog and went on little adventures. And it was things like going to a toothpaste factory or going to a farm, and basically a show to teach kids all about stuff. So I obviously grew up with her. So for me, it was nice to see her in there. There was a few dodgy moments with some of her lines, and there was a very overly on the nose kind of nod to the potential thing of, oh, Craig and the Doctor, are they in a relationship? It was like,
But I think you look ever so sweet, you and your partner and the baby.
Partner, yes, I like it. Is it better than companion?
Companion. Sounds old-fashioned.
I didn't care for that particular aspect of the storyline. But the rest of it I thought was all good. But let's talk about the main ending of this story. People have slated this for years. And the time that I watched this episode, I happened to be working in a summer job as an entertainment host at a holiday campsite. And this was one of the rare times I actually got to speak to people who watched Doctor Who. I had one colleague of mine who really, really did love Doctor Who. So we had some good debates and stuff. But then you had this other girl, and I'll always remember her. Her name was Abby. And she didn't really care for Doctor Who. She sort of watched it, but wasn't really like a fan. She was just like, oh, I'm watching Doctor Who just because it's on TV and it's considered popular, so I might as well watch it. She was that kind of person. And she just piped up. She's like, you know what? I thought the ending was so stupid. I mean, the guy, he defeated these robots with love. That is so stupid. Well, yes, in a way, it could be considered stupid. At the same time, it's not bloody stupid because it has been very well established in Doctor Who that the Cybermen are people, human beings, who were converted into cyborgs. And what made them especially dangerous is that they removed all of their emotions. But, particularly with new Doctor Who, this particular design of Cybermen, it was first pointed out in their introductory two-parter story. They have an emotional inhibitor. It is a device that has been planted in them which shuts off emotions. It switches them off. And the Doctor even mentions this in this episode.
Emotional inhibitor. Stops them feeling anything.
Why?
Still got a human brain. Imagine its reaction if it could see itself, realise itself inside this thing. They'd go insane.
So they cut out the one thing that makes them human.
Because they have to.
It has been made very, very clear that when the Cybermen don't have their emotional inhibitors switched on and the people realise that they were humans and they got converted into Cybermen, it freaks them out. And often it blows up their heads because they cannot cope with the loss of their humanity. So, when you take Craig, you try to convert him into a Cyberman, and his baby cries. For me, it makes complete sense that hearing your child crying and screaming, there is that human nature in you, and it's not even just a human nature, I think it's just an animal nature in general, that you want to help them. You have that need, that ultimate urge to help them. Now, of course, I don't have kids of my own. I have a nephew, and he is currently about to turn 4. Now, I've done a lot of babysitting, and I can be downstairs, and he will be upstairs. If he starts crying, I wouldn't say it's especially loud, but there's something that just twigs. So I could be watching TV, I'm just like, I'll just pause it, and then I hear it really, really clearly. He's coming through over the sounds of the TV. He's woken up, he needs help of whatever kind it is. But like I said, it's not just a human thing. My sister has a cat. And that cat, as soon as my nephew starts crying, she, again, if she's in the house, she will be up there and she'll want to curl up to him and cuddle him and she'll nudge him with her head. Because again, it's that animal nature in us that needs to protect the young.
I blew him up with love.
No, that's impossible. And also grossly sentimental and oversimplistic. You destroyed them because of the deeply ingrained hereditary human trait to protect one's own genes, which in turn triggered love. You blew them up with love.
And so, when people say, oh, he just destroyed them with the power of love. Yes, that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. And if you put it in those terms, yes, it could sound very stupid. But in reality, to me, it makes complete sense. And I get really annoyed when people say it like that, because I liked what they went for with this. I thought it was really, really good. And yeah, I think it was just a misunderstood ending. But, as I said, overall, it is an average episode. It's not great. I like what they did, but it is still, at the same time, a very average episode. So, I'm now going to score this episode. And like I said, there's 10 categories, all get a score out of 10. So these are the scores for closing time. And so, closing time has scored 60 marks out of 100, which makes it a C grade. Yeah, it is silly. It is cheesy a lot of the times, but I like what they did with it. And then, of course, they really set up the series finale, which is still weird because, in a way, you could kind of say it's a bit of a two-parter because of the ending scene with having River and that reveal that she was the person in the spacesuit all the way back in the Series 6 opener. But then you have literally 45 minutes or so to try and round up this whole series full of so many questions. Who's, why's, where's, how's. So, yeah. I've not watched the finale in a long time. So I'm going to be very interested to see what my score's going to be for this finale. Join me next week for my review of the Series 6 finale, The Wedding of River Song. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, consider joining the Patreon. But for now, my name's Kevin. I am a geek, and you've been watching Kevin the Geek. Goodbye.